Here we are for the, what month is it, Megan? March, right? March 2017 live. This, by the way, is Megan, the oldest daughter.
And most awkward.
And favorite, right? I thought that's what you were going to say.
No, George is the favorite.
Oh, that's right, the boy child. So I don't know, Chris, are we ready to jump in with, oh no, we got to do a little bit of a commercial first. Thanks to our sponsor, Titebond, for helping to underwrite our lives. And other than that, I think let's jump in with a question. And Megan, the first one is for you.
Yeah, John wants to know. Okay, John wants to know. Oh no, hang on. John wants to know, how do you know what dado stack to use when making tenons?
Well, the important thing is to use the right one so you don't get tenons elbow. So here's the deal. If you're on a table saw, which would be why you're using a dado, so you'll have to help with the tilt and the lighting here, Tristan, because it's your board is going to be this way, and you're trying to produce a tenon. And then somewhere underneath here, there's a dado stack. So what I do is I stack up the dado so it's about a 1/16 of an inch more than the length of the tenon I want to produce. So a 1/2 inch long tenon, 9/16 wide dado stack.
Okay.
Easy peasy. One done. See how easy that was, Meg? You could have done that one.
And probably not. I'm pretty sure they just made up the word dado. I don't think that's real.
It is a weird word.
All right. Philip says, I've seen mixed reviews of the helmet with respirator you sometimes wear while turning.
Oh, can you look at that helmet behind the grinder right there?
You've obviously put
Darth Vader thing.
You've obviously put some time on yours by now. What's your opinion of this product after using it for a while?
All right, so thank you. Thank you, dear. This is the respirator to which he is referring. It's a Trend Air Shield Pro. When I answer the questions after the fact here, I'll give you a link for it. I've had great luck with this. I've had it, I don't know, how long have I had this, man? Really long time.
I've been in the shop like 5 times.
I always use it when I'm turning, so I do have a lot of hours on it. If I start with a charge, I've never had it, I've probably turned 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. I've never had the battery run out prematurely. I've replaced the filters a couple times. So yeah, I've had great luck with this product. I haven't read reviews about it, but I have no complaints. So
and if you hate it, your kid can be a stormtrooper for Halloween.
That's right. It does have that going for it. Luke, you're my son.
Hope not.
And now my glasses are dirty because there was dust inside there.
Okay.
All right. Is there another question?
Yes, there is. Rick wants to know, do they make a drill bit chuck for a router so a person could have a portable drill press with his plunge router?
No, but what size hole are you trying to make? Because there's gazillions of sizes of router bits. So I would just, the problem's going to be at the lowest RPM of a router, which is about 10,000 RPM. That's way faster than the highest speed on a drill press. Drill presses run up to 3,000 RPM or so. So there's no way you're going to get a router slow enough to safely and effectively operate a twist bit or a Forstner bit or a paddle bit. And then something like a drill chuck, is all this making sense to you? Mm-hmm. Something like a drill chuck is designed to run at 2,000 RPM, not at 10,000 RPM. So it's probably not concentric enough to be at that high speed. So it's a great idea to punch holes with a plunge router, and I would just look for the size bit for the hole that you're trying to make.
Okay, thanks, George. Joyce wants to know, what exactly is woodworking? She wants to learn basic carpentry. Is there a similarity?
So the line in the sand for me, and we actually get this even here at the lives, Krista reads out some weeds. Let me go again. Here at the lives.
Pretend you didn't hear that, it's fine.
Yeah, it's the outtakes you never see on stuff that isn't live. Krista weeds out questions about what we call DIY, home improvement. So I would say carpentry is, if you're building a deck, you're building a shed, you're building a garage, if you're putting trim up in the house, if you're doing crown molding in the living room, that stuff all falls into carpentry, construction, home improvement, DIY. Woodworking, on the other hand, is more like cabinet making, furniture making, lathe turning. Now, admittedly, they cross paths and a lot of similar tools get used, but they're not the same thing. So what we teach at Woodworkers Guild is woodworking, which is more along the lines of the cabinet making, furniture making, that kind of stuff.
Okay. All right. We have a question from a viewer who wants to know if you have done a review of a digital angle gauge, and is there one that you are sold on? This viewer has looked at reviews on Amazon, but doesn't really trust those.
Megan, why don't you introduce Kelty while I get a tool?
I have a dog.
So everybody, Kelty.
Come here. She's not. Oh, come here. Okay. Yeah, this is.
That's going well.
It's okay.
She's
We're gonna make it happen.
Kelty's a little camera shy.
Okay,
This is Megan's border collie, Kelty. How old is Kelty now?
She's gonna be 7 next month.
Gonna be 7. Really good dog. Great, very low maintenance.
Just doesn't like the whole heights thing, which is understandable.
And for a border collie, not super over caffeinated. She's been a pretty good.
No, minus the shaking. No.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she just doesn't like being on the table. Okay, digital angle gauge. So, Krista, if you can do a zoom here, we'll show them what we're talking about. This is a brand of it that I like a lot. It's a Wixie gauge. I'll source this after the fact. So the deal with this is that if I put it on my table saw table, I can zero it. I'm trying to look for buttons here. I can zero it. There are magnets on the bottom. Next step, I would then put that on my saw blade. And as I start to angle the blade, hopefully it's indicating what angle you're getting to 1/10 of a degree. So this Wixie product I've been using for a really long time. I'm real happy with this one. Haven't done a review. I haven't looked at others, but I can just tell you idiosyncratically that I just did a drop test and it's still on. The Wixie has served me very well, so I have no problem recommending that one.
All right. We have a question here, George. One of our viewers wants to know, do you have any plans for rolling plywood and off-cut carts for your workshop?
I have done that project, and well, if you want to do a move, Krista, we can. They're actually right back there. But I'm not sure that it's. If we have them online, if we have them on GOA.com, I'll put a link to them in the answer for the question. I know they went out on a DVD. Some DVDs we have changed to streaming platform, and that content is available online, and others it's not. So yes, I've done it. I'm not sure it's available online at this moment.
Okay. Another viewer wants to know, they were wondering, with lathe tools, what is the best way to sharpen them once they go dull?
Kitchen shears? Is that not the right answer?
It's almost the same thing, but different. It's just like it, but different.
Well, that's what most things are.
Yes. You may have noticed Megan has my slightly sarcastic sense of humor.
I'm great at puns, though.
Yes.
And knock-knock jokes.
Why don't you tell the viewers a knock-knock joke while I get a daily grinder?
I don't know if we can do a knock-knock joke because there's no call and response.
I can
You can pretend they say who's there. So.
Okay, maybe I don't really know that many knock-knock jokes, but what do you call a pile of kittens?
And please keep it. So this is a G-rated.
This is G-rated.
Okay.
Keeping it Disney. What do you call a pile of kittens?
What, Megan?
A meowtin'. Come on. Okay. No. All right. I'm going to pretend that there was mass applause at that.
Why is it that when pterodactyls go to the bathroom, you can't hear it?
Because their P is silent.
Very good. That's one of my favorite jokes. All right. So, Krista, I'm going to have you get on this wheel, if that's in your wheelhouse. The one that's closest to you.
So I guess we should get it rolling.
So when it comes to sharpening lathe chisels, there's 8 million different ways to do it. But to answer the question, I'll show my favorite. This is a low RPM grinder. Runs at 1725 RPM. You don't want to sharpen on a high-speed grinder because it's going too fast. High-speed grinders are for grinding, not sharpening. So the way I handle chisels on here is I just freehand them. It takes some practice, but it's very fast. You see where we are there? This is a 120 grit wheel on this side. And part of the key to this is that fluid motion. I'm rolling. And then on a flat chisel, like this one, kind of a skew shape, it'll come in like this. Flip, come in like this. That's on a low RPM grinder, and when I answer the question online, I'll also provide some links to work we've done with the work sharp. I've got a work sharp here. It's just not right here. It's in the shop, and the work sharp is a great way to go as well. But I'm a big advocate of learning to freehand sharpen, because with lathe chisels, you sharpen them all the time. In the course of a single turning, depending on the wood, you could sharpen 2 or 3 times. So freehand sharpening and very quickly going from sharpener to sharp is the way to go.
All right. Well, here we are with George Vondriska. He just went off scene, manager and editor of Woodworkers Guild of America, and his daughter Megan, here to answer any of your woodworking questions.
Well, maybe not any, because if I don't know the answer.
Okay. Go ahead and type your questions right down in the comment box right below where you're watching this, and we'll get them answered if we can. And we want to thank Titebond for sponsoring this video today, and we've got more questions rolling in.
And if we don't get to your question now, as soon as this ends, I sit down and provide answers to anything. If I know the answer, I provide answers in type to anything I don't get to live.
Okay, good. George, is a single 4x4 stronger than a pair of 2x4s laminated together for a simple workbench?
I have no idea.
And there it is.
There it is.
This is the only time you'll hear him say that he doesn't know anything.
No, that's not true.
Completely
Treasure it.
That's not true. All right.
I don't know. Somewhere there's a structural engineer that knows.
What's heavier, a pound of bricks or a pound of feathers?
Bricks, of course.
It's like the same kind of question. They sound the same. All right.
Is there
Isn't this fun, Megan?
Yeah, this is
Glad
great.
you came.
This is great.
Is there such a thing as a good benchtop bandsaw? From what I've used, the blades are just very flimsy.
Well, is the problem with the blade or the problem with the bandsaw? So I have used benchtop bandsaws from Delta, Ryobi, maybe that's about it. And they're okay. You know, it's not the same as using a floor model with a 1.5 horse model motor on it. But it is important to get a good blade. Krista just like walked off the set. I don't know.
I'm getting something.
She's getting an answer. She's getting a prop for the next question. So yeah, it's more important to get the blade. Get a good blade. One of the things I've talked a lot about, and I'll provide a link to this in the answer. Timberwolf blades are a great way to go. If you call them and say, this is the saw I have, this is the kind of work I typically do, they will help you with a blade recommendation. I'll provide the link and 800 number for them. Throw them in. Megan can catch them. She's a great little athlete.
Okay.
I'll provide the link for that information in the answer to the question.
All right.
No pressure.
Dale says, you seem like the kind of guy that wouldn't have a sponsor if you didn't really like it. So, do you prefer
Titebond with the screen.
Oh,
or Titebond
nice.
I impressed myself sometimes.
Wow, one-handed. With the label facing the camera even. Good job.
Try.
Do I prefer?
Do you like Titebond? Yeah.
Yeah. What's nice with Titebond is they've got a big array of products. These are their water resistant and waterproof glue, indoor glue. They've got glow in the dark glue, which if you've not seen it is pretty cool. So yeah, I've been using it long before Titebond sponsored anything I did. I was using Titebond products. So it was a natural relationship.
In the vein of Titebond, Ryan wants to know, what, if any, are the advantages of using Titebond III, conveniently already out there, over Titebond II?
So I'm going to say at this stage of the game, Krista could answer this question because we do get asked this on the live shows a lot. Titebond II is water resistant. Titebond III is waterproof. So if you're building outdoor furniture that's going to live outside but not necessarily be immersed in water, this is fine. If it's going to be wet, like you're going to build a planter box that's going to fill with dirt, so it's a constantly moist environment, you're better off with this. I would say Titebond III is a little more expensive than Titebond II. It's kind of the only compelling reason to not just use it all the time is price. If you're at all unsure about the moisture aspect, just use 3, default to 3. And now I got to say, this is what I always use on cutting boards, but I believe they are both FDA approved. But you might want to.
It does say on the back.
Double check on that. All right, you read that one. I know 3 is FDA approved for application.
Indirect food contact.
Indirect food contact. So the biggest reason I, for the most part, get a little nervous about using 2 is because it does tack faster. So if you've got a real complex glue up, everything is going to start to grab a little quicker than original or 3.
Thanks, George. Don wants to know, would you ever consider doing a program on window joinery, styles and rails, etc.?
You could come to my new apartment.
Does it need new windows?
Probably.
It's something we could. It's something we could mullion over. See this guy? It's kind of a woodworking answer joke kind of a thing.
I hope some of you got it because I have no idea what just happened.
It's interesting. I did a job where I built all new storm windows for an older house. So I know of what you speak. I'd have to think about it if that's a good buy. It seems a little focused to devote the energy to it for a video, but let me stew on it. It might be kind of a pain, but we'll see.
Okay.
Got that one.
Got that one? Okay, because you know glass, pain. Okay.
Yeah, you were pretty transparent.
Okay.
Oh, nice, guy.
Very
You
good.
should be here more.
Yeah.
They were way better. All right.
Yeah, I could draw the shades on him.
All right. Okay. Keep it together, kids. Ready? Okay. Victor wants to know, what is the correct layout for setting up a dado blade system?
All right. Well, we can move to the table saw unless there's something we should do with the bench.
Nope. Not right now.
Okay. Well, we're going to grab this blade right here. So here, Mike. You can
Not drop it.
Yeah, don't drop it. And then I'm going to unplug the table saw. So there's stuff going on in the background.
What do you need me for this?
Straighter on would be better. And then tripod. So we're going to get a little more elevation there. And then zoom in, and as much as you can get kind of a bird's eye view here.
What do clouds wear under their pants?
What do clouds wear under their pants?
Thunderwear.
All right, so this being a SawStop saw, to put the dado on, the step I'm not doing here, because we're not going to actually run it, is we would also swap out the brake. There's 2 different brakes, one for 10-inch blades, one for 8-inch dado heads. So we would also make that change. All right, so stacking up a dado head, one thing we want to know is how big the dado should be, Daddy-O. Coming right back. This is an infinity blade that I'm working with right now. And this is kind of a cool product of theirs. So zoom out just a skosh. Okay, so this toothed thing, there's a space and a dimension, a space and a dimension, a space and a dimension. So I want to set up the dado head. The way I can use this is kind of like a feeler gauge, and I can just start putting it on the material until I find the slot. So right there, that's a pretty good fit, 25, 30 seconds. And then that tells me how big to set up the dado for this particular piece of material. And it'll help, I'd still do a test cut, but that'll help you focus in a little bit. A shop-made alternative to that, I'm gonna have to look for, here it is. I'll show you the shop-made alternative after, because Krista's here on the tight shot. So then as you set up the dado head, this is Infinity's Datonator. All right. You're always going to have 2 rim blades. You always have to use the 2 rim blades. And then we change the number of blades that go in between. I'm going to raise this up, Krista, so you might have to tilt a little bit. But that should make it easier for them to see. Okay. Rim blade. And then depending on how big we're trying to stack this up, some number of chippers is going to go in between. And the really, really, really critical thing is that the tooth of this chipper has to go into the gullet of the rim blade. The gullet is just the fancy name for the valley between the teeth right there. So that tooth goes in the valley, and then another chipper. And again, the number of chippers will depend. Like, could you get that? There's a package right under that cardboard sleeve, right above what you're at. That thing. Yep. So then when the next chipper goes on, it also has to live in the valley. So we're going to keep doing that. We're going to really, really, really make sure that we never have carbide to carbide or carbide to steel contact. And then the last rim blade goes on. Tighten it up, Bob's your uncle. So this is based on the idea that we can get the width we want from rim blades and chippers, make the right size sandwich. You might sometimes have to do, we have 0 nails. Sometimes you might have to add dado shims to the equation. Each color is a different thickness. So those really let you micro adjust what we're doing here to the size of your material in small thousandths of an inch. So here I'm looking to see, I was looking on the packaging to see if it tells us how thick each of these are. The black I'm going to say is about 3/1000ths of an inch. That's the thickness of about a piece of paper. So let's zoom out, Krista, enough to see this thing. This is a shop-made jig that you can use to set up your dados. What I did with this is I did a 23/32 buildup. Then I added 5/1000ths, I think. Yep. I added a 5/1000 shim, made another cut, 10/1000ths, made another cut, 20/1000ths, made another cut. So the way you would use that is to have a piece of wood. So the way we would use this is just see which of those slots our material fits into, or none. So it's a little, this must be a 13/16 piece. It's a little wider than my widest slot. When we find the slot that it fits into, then like the gauge I showed you before, that gives you a good idea of how wide to set up your dado head, at least to get started. All right?
Yeah. And we're going to stay right here because Jason says he's looking at a SawStop. Like, I think to purchase a SawStop.
Like he's standing in a store just looking at a SawStop?
Maybe. Do all models come with both the 10-inch brake and the 8-inch dado brake, or do you have to buy the dado separate?
I do not know for sure, but I think, well, check a retailer in your area. I think thanks for laughing, Megan. I kind of think they only come with the 10-inch blade or 10-inch brake. But yeah, check with SawStop or check with the retailer where you're looking.
When in doubt, Google it.
Yep. Google knows. Google is really smart.
Yeah, that's why I go to Google for my homework and not you.
Good move.
You're welcome.
Okay. Alan wants to know, if you were just starting to turn, so just starting turning, I knew you were going to do that. What steel would you buy, HSS or carbide?
High-speed steel.
All right. Perfect. Exactly.
Well, okay. I jumped early there because I thought you were going to say what type of steel, high-speed steel or tool steel, in which case my very fast answer would be high-speed steel. High-speed steel versus carbide. So now, Meg, if you could go there, just go. That's what I meant. Now there should be chisels, lathe chisels on top of that toolbox in those plastic sleeves. Any one of those would be smurferific.
What about the 120?
Sure. Oh, anyone with that. Yeah, no, that's fine. So this is kind of a new deal. with these carbides, which are sharp. I should open the other end, just like the package says. With these carbide tip chisels, and carbide tipped isn't quite fair. There's an insert here. Can you give us a zoom, Krista, on this?
Please.
Please, thank you. Please and thank you. So this carbide is removable. It's got 4 sides. When this side is dull, loosen it, rotate it. You have another sharp edge, another sharp edge. So when I have people in classes and we're using these carbide chisels, what people really like is the carbide's really, really durable so that it holds an edge a long time. And you're not constantly running to the sharpener. So I would say you have to decide a little bit. The carbide chisels are not inexpensive, but I do really like the fact that I will never sharpen this edge. I'll simply rotate it to a fresh spot. If you want to avoid sharpening completely, go with the carbides. So that's my more qualified answer. I should have listened to the whole question.
I did open it right and you put it wrong back.
All right. So we have another turning question while we're on the subject.
Okay.
So we have a viewer who is wondering about maybe the technique of turning wood. So when he's turning the wood, he always has a strange thing happen when it starts to get small. Okay. So it makes a screeching sound and the wood starts to vibrate really badly. Is he pushing too hard or what?
This, my friend, is called chatter. And it just happened to me. I had a customer for whom I turned, he had made the bottom end of a pool cue. So it was about this long, ebony and maple. And on the ebony end, he needed it turned from about 2 inches in diameter to 3/4 of an inch. And then some decorative stuff was going to go on top of that 3/4 inch. Like I turned about 18 inches of it to 3/4 of an inch. So what happens when you especially have a spindle that's really long and it gets really narrow in the middle, then it tends to flex away from the chisel. So a couple things. Make sure your chisels are really, really, really sharp. If you're going to do a lot of this kind of work, then the addition of what's called a steady rest is a great idea. A steady rest is a device that backs up your turning. It'll have a bearing or something on it that spins with your spindle. So as you're pressing on the front, it's supporting it from the back. You do have to be really, really careful because if you push hard enough, you can fracture the spindle. What's really happening is you push on it, it's flexing like this. And the other thing you might notice then when you stop is it's got funny lines in it, almost like real slow screw threads. And that's because you make contact and then you don't. You make contact and then you don't as it chatters through the cut. So be very careful about it. You want it to not do that. So sharp chisels, don't push so hard. If it's a long, skinny turning, entertain putting a steady rest on there. And all of that stuff will really help a lot.
Okay, thanks, George. David wants to know, would you recommend the Drill Doctor to keep drill bits sharp?
Yep, they're great. I've got one here. Use it all the time.
Okay, and then we have Dave, not David. Dave wants to know, what is a good, moderately priced portable table saw?
SawStop, job site saw. It's hard. There's a lot of good saws in the market, as Megan knows. And
there's a lot of there's a lot of bad tools on the market.
That's true. It's hard for me to not recommend tools that provide safety technology like SawStop and the Bosch Reacts. The Bosch, I think it's that 4100 series. I've got one of those job site saws. I've had it for a really long time. I've built a lot of job site stuff with it. Had that, I think, before SawStop's job site saw was even available. So that's a good one. I've got a little bit of experience with DeWalt, but really the thing to do with this stuff is not get a statistic of one. So I have used a couple of job site saws. One, I really recommend SawStop or the Bosch Reacts because they will protect your fingers. Two, what you really need is a tool test where an objective evaluator has looked at 10 saws, all of which cost $500, and compared apples to apples to apples to give you a fair comparison. I would say one of the things you want to look for is a lot of benchtop saws will not accept a dado head, or the width of dado head they will accept is really limited. So if you plan on doing woodworking that requires a dado and you end up with a saw that won't do it, you're in trouble. So that's a great feature to shop for.
But you know what? 10 out of 10 would recommend safety features.
Yes, 10 out of 10 were very good.
Okay. Humberto wants to know.
Is that like just spinning in the back of your head that whole time?
Well, when they were asking about chatter, I really wanted to find a pair of, like earmuffs to walk back on set with.
To stop the chatter.
Yeah.
Yes. That would have been good.
Over there somewhere.
Yeah, I just don't know where they live.
Humberto wants to know, what is your favorite measuring tape?
If you grab a tape over there, any one of those would be just fine. FastCap makes a great product. I'll link to it when we're done here. And there's 80 bazillion different FastCap tapes. I think this is called a lefty-righty because you can read it this way or you can read it this way. It's got measurements on both sides. Comes in different lengths. For a shop application, I find a 16-footer is plenty long. And the other thing that's kind of cool with the FastCap tapes, two things. This is like a dry erase kind of a thing. So I take a measurement, I can write that down, and then when I walk to the miter saw, I actually remember the measurement because I wrote it down. And when you're done with that, it'll erase, and we can start all over again. And then back here, there's a pencil sharpener. So pretty cool little add-ons.
Okay, thank
And
you.
as you get
George.
older, the ability to write things down and not forget them becomes more important.
What?
We
Were we
forgot
talking
my
about?
last birthday, so I just wanted to.
Two of them.
Who's
So
counting?
you're really only 20.
Yes.
All right. Phil says he wants to make a blanket box, but afraid to buy good wood and mess it up. Would you recommend trying a box on a smaller scale with cheaper plywood, or just go for broke with the good hardwood?
What do you think?
Get the bag.
We're live, baby.
It's fine. Do the bad stuff first.
Yeah, I think prototyping, I would say the same thing. If you're not sure, then prototyping is always a great idea, and just scale everything down and practice first. It is good to be conservative because material and time is expensive, and you don't want to have to backtrack.
And then you don't feel crappy if you mess up and feel like you're out a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Okay. We are here with George Vondriska, managing editor of Woodworkers Guild
That's
of
me.
America. That's him. His daughter Megan,
That's
the
her.
token millennial. All right, look, I just plugged it.
Yeah.
You can
Go to promote your
Find me on
blog,
Instagram,
find her on Instagram and
thetokenmillennial.com.
Facebook.
and you can follow George and Woodworkers Guild on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Just maybe not to the grocery store because you'll get lost.
Sometimes.
Make
I
sure
turn into a vegetable.
Make sure you go out if you haven't done so already and sign up for the free newsletter. And then we are here answering as many of your questions as we can get to in the next half an hour. Type them in there. We'll get to them. If we don't get to them live, George will sit down right after this and answer them. He'll reply to every one of these. So don't worry, your question is getting answered. And we want to thank Titebond for sponsoring our
It
live
sounded like you
today.
were winding down there. I wanted to make sure we didn't miss it.
Well, it is a big banner.
This is true.
I'm not going to miss it. Thank you, though. All right. Jason says, I'm getting a loud humming noise from my bandsaw as I use it. It sounds like it might be coming from the motor.
Or it might just be flat. Come on, that was great.
It could be a B flat.
How do I know if the motor went or is going bad?
Put your hand on it, see if it's warm. That's a good indication. Or if it's hot. Warm is okay. Too hot to touch is not. I would put my nose down there and I would smell it. Electrical stuff has a very distinct, it's not horrible, but a very distinct odor when it starts to go bad. You could try that. And I would say if there's any question, find an electrical motor repair place in town, wherever you are, and take it off and take it in and have them give it a once over. And I've had a lot of electric motors in this shop rebuilt instead of replaced. And the economics of it are good to do the repair.
All right. Thanks, George. Bob says, George, I'm in the planning phase of a buffet and hutch for our dining room. How should I accommodate the wood expansion in the base of the cabinet and the back of the hutch? I'm planning to use solid wood panels.
Well, there's too many it depends. It depends on the design, the construction, how you're going to put it together. Net, you have to let everything expand and contract independently. Now, if you're gluing a solid wood panel to a solid wood panel, and it's long grain, those can be glued because they're both going to expand and contract the same if they're the same species. Where you get in trouble is any kind of cross grain application. So just within your design, you need to incorporate tabletop fasteners or figure-8 fasteners or sliding dovetails or something that's going to let those parts move independently. And it's just, there's too many variables design by design to give a distinct answer for that. But be sure you let it move. And the wider the thing is, the more it moves. Expansion and contraction is linear. So that means if a 12-inch wide piece of red oak moves 1/8 of an inch, a 24-inch wide piece moves 1/4 of an inch, and you have to allow it to do that.
All right. Terrell says, what can I spray, if anything, on my router lift to make it move more freely?
Well, I'm out of Glide Coat. I just used the last of it up on my table saw. Glide Coat is more of a tabletop lubricant, but it would work for that. I'll source it in the answers to the questions when I'm all done here. The bottom line is you don't want anything wet on it because then, of course, sawdust is going to stick to it. So this Glide Coat of which I speak is it's a dry lubricant, and that would be a good choice for it, or a good application for it.
Okay. Brian says, would you, George, have your dust collector piping designed or just run duck and hook it up to the collector?
Well, go ahead and give them a spin there, Kristen. They can see how. You don't have to go anywhere. Just spin the. I think if you just spin the camera, it'll be fine. Well, you gotta look on your face about gapping the cord. So I just.
Well, I have to. Oh, I know, Brown.
You know, if you just spin the camera. So anyway, so there is my dust collection, and it's not extensive enough that I had any of that design. I really just ran a main as far as I could, and then had other parts come off of it. If you're going to get more extensive, if you're actually piping in a whole shop, having somebody
want it to be pretty.
you want it to look better than mine. Having somebody who really knows what they're doing is a great idea, because what you really need to know is how many CFM your dust collector is, with the individual tools, how many CFM each tool requires, where are you going to use flex line, because that drops the airflow significantly more than solid pipe does. So there's 80 million variables. And it's really, then in that case where it's extensive, it's a really good idea to get a pro involved.
All right, thank you, George. So we have a question from Chris from the UK. Okay, so Chris, you're gonna see this tomorrow. I recognize that because he watched it the day after. Okay. I'm just gonna shorten it here for the viewers, and then George is gonna respond to it later as well. So to consolidate this, Chris is moving his current shop into a new shop in his backyard, okay? He would like your opinion on how he can ensure that he doesn't get too much extra stuff that he doesn't need, like screws, nails, etc. Right? Okay. One. Two, what are the most common screws that you use that you keep at arm's length for your woodworking shop? Does wood glue go bad? How is the best way to store it? Can you have too much finish? Right? And what do you recommend for shelving? And finally, what do you recommend for your first aid kit? Whew.
All right. So starting at what I believe was the first question, how do you not get a bunch of stuff? Megan can probably tell you I'm the wrong one to answer that question.
He's got like a hoarding problem.
Yeah. If I have space, I fill it. So I think in general, just to try to, and I'm actually trying to do this as we speak, to winnow your shop down to what you really need to have as opposed to what you want to have. And what I'm trying to do more and more here is eliminate a lot of the extra stuff, and then just get what I need as I need it, rather than warehouse a bunch of stuff. And that should free up a lot of space.
So good advice for that usually is if you haven't used something in a year.
Or maybe, well, okay, yeah.
To get rid of
Or
it.
less, I would say. I mean, and I'm bad at that. I mean, Krista can give us a pan of the shop. I'm too prone to keeping stuff just in case. And then there's like Tupperware bins everywhere of stuff. So I'm actually trying to get rid of a bunch of that right now. So then,
Favorite screw.
favorite screw is the screw you're using should be twice as long as the thing you're going through. So if you're attaching 3/4 inch stock to something, you should have 1.5 inch screw. So it's hard to.
I didn't say anything.
The two of you. Sophomoric, I believe is the word. So it's hard to nail it down to one particular type because it's going to depend on what you're doing. But a flathead wood screw is going to be probably the style of screw, and then size and length are going to vary depending on the project. Yes, wood glue goes bad. Shelf life is somewhere around a year. If you're pouring it and it gets real stringy, you probably shouldn't use it. And it can also develop a smell. Store it. Don't allow it to freeze because that's bad for it. It is a water-based product. Types of shelving.
That's a good question for you too.
Yeah, because I'm bad at that. I actually, more and more in here, I'm trying to not have open shelving too much because then it also collects more junk and more dust. So if it can go in a cabinet and I can close the door, I just kind of like that look better. So I think that's going to be a little idiosyncratic to your shop and how much space you have. Stuff you use infrequently goes up high. Stuff you use every day should be at eye level or lower. What else?
There's two more. Can you have too much finish? And is it good, I think, to store it in tins rather than plastic containers?
Okay.
And what should go in your first aid kit?
First aid kit. So too much finish, yeah. I mean, I would do the same thing there. Try to get it as you need it. And again, I'm guilty of this because I've got stuff I've kept just in case I want that color for some future project. And then the problem is it dries out, it goes bad, and by the time you open the can, you can't use it anyway. With top coats like shellac does have a shelf life. That'll go bad. So again, there it's not a good idea to have a bulk of it sitting around if you're not going to use it because it will go off on you. So just this general idea of keeping around, especially in a limited space, what you know you're going to need so you're not overdoing it on product. First
Stay away
aid
from woodworking sales stores.
Estate sales.
estate sales. Yeah. It's easy to find a deal and get too wrapped up in it. Which isn't to say don't take the deal if you need the tool, but free isn't always free. First aid cabinet.
What do you need in your first aid cabinet? When was the last time you cut yourself? Like yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, Band-Aids, hydrogen peroxide, pair of tweezers. I do keep an ice pack in there. One of these that you can strike and it gets cold.
Eye flush.
There's an eye flush. Just some big gauze pads. Here's what I would do for your particular area in your particular shop is call an EMT, emergency medical technician, or
not via 911.
Yeah, not via 911. And if a good question, a great question would be, if I have worst case scenario, an amputation in my shop, what do I do with the digit that came off? I think current thinking is not to ice it, but I'm not 100% sure, which is why I don't really want to answer the question. So there's some stuff like that. It would be really good to talk to a medical professional about. I've got a woodworking shop. I really want to protect myself. And thankfully, the doors on my first aid cabinet don't get open that often because there's just.
Only for sheep of the Benchtop.
Yeah, for the dog. First aid on the dog is much more likely than first aid on the humans.
Just because you don't like first aid.
Well, yeah, this is.
Paper towel is not a Band-Aid.
No.
Jim says, George, I'm interested in your wood turning class in May. Could you describe what is covered in this class, please?
must be, yeah. So dance for a second there.
There's usually a lot of talking, a lot of turning, never mind.
A lot of bad puns.
There are a lot of bad puns.
As luck would have it. Those.
Here's the thing. I don't know what this thing is, but it's a very interesting thing.
It's a paper joint.
It's abstract art.
Paper. It's a paper joint.
Crystal got it. It's a paper joint. All right. So what we do is it's a 4-hour class, I believe, and everybody starts with something like this. The dummy board. This part is already glued on via a paper joint, like Krista said. Yellow glue holding that all together. We cut this round, and then everybody works on their own bowl on the lathe. We concentrate on the scraping technique and take the bowls to a point where they're completely finished, kind of like this one. So this was turned in a class almost exactly 2 years ago, April of 2015. Maple, we completely sand them, completely finish them, and then the very last step is we separate the paper joint, sand the residue off the bottom, and everybody takes their bowl home. So we start with sharp chisels. I take care of that ahead of time, but then as needed, I go through sharpening demos. This part of the shop that we're in, it's actually kind of cool. Stuff gets moved back, and there will be 6 or 8 lathes set up right here, depending on how many people are signed up. The other thing that's kind of cool, I think, about my turning classes is I've got benchtop lathes that are this big. I've got floor model lathes that are much bigger. Speed changes by belt, speed changes by electronic variable speed, speed changes by mechanical variable speed. So in addition to the turning part of it, there's the opportunity to look at and kind of kick the tires on a bunch of different manufacturers' lathes and a bunch of different sizes of lathes. And then same thing with the chisels. I've got carbide chisels, I've got high speed, lots of different profiles of scrapers. So lots of opportunity to just experiment with different stuff. So that there is a course description on VondriskaWoodworks.com. And if you need more information, give me a call. My phone number's on the website, or shoot me an email.
And it's a lot better than a YouTube video because he'll tell you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, it's cool to do it live because it's interactive.
All right, so we have a question from, and I'm just going to read this exactly as it came in because it's great. We have a question from a viewer that says, what is y'all's recommendation for a router bit to use on flattening slabs, cutting boards? And I like that because I lived in the South for a time and I like to hear the y'all. So
y'all.
Go ahead, George.
All right, do a commercial or something.
Oh, well, we were here with George Vondriska, Managing Editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. If you don't already do so, go out to the Woodworkers Guild page and sign up for the free newsletter. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll answer as many questions as we can. We only have about 10 minutes left. George will go through and answer these. All of our previous lives and this one will be archived, so you can access them in the future. And then we want to thank Titebond, the Pros Advantage, for sponsoring the live tonight.
Good timing. All right, can you give us a zoom there? I'm going to get a pencil so I don't have to point with the fat finger. So part of what I would look for if I'm going to flatten anything big is large diameter, because the bigger the diameter, the faster the work is going to get done. If we go to a diameter as large as this, you certainly have to have variable speed on your router because we have to slow the RPM down. Now, the reason I brought 2 cutters is to point out the bottom of the cutter. So my preference for doing this kind of work is this cutter. And if you look at them, the difference is that this carbide is only out here on the wings. Technically, this is really designed to edge cut out here, as opposed to flatten cut like this. That being said, this will do it. I've used this bit to flatten end grain cutting boards, but this one, because it's got carbide all across the bottom, is going to do a little bit better job. So when you're shopping your cutters, large diameter, given the opportunity to get one that's got carbide throughout all the way across the bottom of the cutter, that's going to do a little bit better work for you, provide a better surface finish than one like this one.
Okay, thanks, George. Ron is building a bar cabinet that is 62 inches by 22 inches deep. He's planning on half-blind dovetails to connect the top and bottom to the two ends. What concerns should Ron have from movement, and should he glue each dovetail?
Well, the first problem is the dovetails won't be able to see where they're going because they're blind.
That's true. Half blind. They
Right.
can only see out of one eye. If all the material is the same, you can dovetail everything together and it will all expand and contract equally. So is your impression from the question, Krista, that he's building like a big box?
Well, it says a bar cabinet, so I'm assuming it's some sort of drawer. Not sure.
Yeah, so if it's solid wood, solid wood, solid wood, solid wood, and they're all dovetailed together, you can dovetail everything, you can glue everything, and you're going to be fine because all of those pieces will move together.
Okay, great. All right, Greg says, George, I'm just beginning to learn to turn wood on a lathe. I've purchased your videos and watched several of them. It's excellent. I recently purchased pine 2x6s from the lumber yard. I thought I'd experiment by planing flat and gluing up 4 pine 2x6s, 7 inches square in a stack. I mounted the stack on a lathe and formed the bowl. I left it for a few days on the lathe and came back to find several lateral cracks. I assumed the wood was kiln dried. It is a heated shop. What happened?
Yeah, so construction grade lumber, like 2x6 is stuff you get from a big box store, or any place that sells construction grade lumber, is generally dried to maybe 12 or 14%, where more of a furniture grade lumber is commonly more like 6 to 8%. So it's quite possible that those 2x6s, they may have felt dry enough, but they weren't really all that stable. And then, so is the indication that he did a bowl?
Yeah, he did the bowl.
So then especially once you start hollowing, it relieves some of the stress. The wood starts to react to the idea that some of it has been cut away, but not all of it has been cut away. So it's not a huge surprise to me that that happened. A much better material choice for that, and you're not going to get it at a home center, is poplar, which is a popular choice for this. But I recommend, this is a tiny piece of poplar, but poplar is commonly used as what's called a secondary wood because it's not real pretty. It's often green, maybe some purple stripes in it, but it's much, it's more dense than pine. It's not as hard as a maple, walnut, cherry. It is a hardwood, but it's not a hard wood. It is available in 2-inch thick pieces, but for this, you're gonna have to go to a hardwood supplier. But your turning practice is gonna be much more pleasant on poplar than on pine.
All right, George, we have about 7 minutes left.
Well, we gotta ask everybody where they're watching from.
Well, we already had somebody from Manitoba. It's 31 below Celsius there. Woo!
So what is that in Fahrenheit?
31, so 0 is freezing here. 0 Celsius is 32 above. So 31 below, well, it must be like 0 or 10 below
Oh,
Fahrenheit.
it's not that bad.
Or so.
Yeah, us
Y'all are
Wisconsin
fine.
people are used to
Yeah,
that
'cause we had 2 weeks
nonsense.
of 25 below about 2 months ago.
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
Right. Okay. Well, speaking of poplar, Wayne wants to know what stain and finish work best for poplar cabinets?
Paint.
Okay.
It's a problem. It's a problem
The
because
beauty is on the inside,
That's
not
right.
necessarily on the outside.
and poplar is a great paint grade wood. But the problem is the grain is so funky that just putting a stain on here, it can still be pretty ugly. So a good answer to this actually for poplar is gel stains. Gel stains were originally designed for fiberglass doors, and they add color, but they also are a little bit more opaque, so that you're going to add color, but you're going to cover up some of this green stuff, where a pigment dye is going to soak in, and you're going to have whatever golden oak stain on top of green wood. It's going to be hard to get it to look at. Krista's already rolling her eyes. It's going to be hard to get it to look good because it's not a great combination. So gel stains are a good choice for poplar.
Okay. Thanks, George. Frank wants to know, can you run a 12-inch saw blade on a 10-inch cabinet saw?
Probably not. There's a torque issue there. Lever arm of the size of the blade compared to the motor, what the motor can kick out for power.
Okay. Craig would like to know, what is best epoxy to use to fill cracks or knots, and how do you color it?
Well, I use in fact, Megan's live edge table that she just got from me. I use just standard off the shelf 2-part epoxy to fill the knots, the cracks and the knots on that. The stuff that's in like a hypodermic kind of a thing. And I didn't color it at all, and it looks
great.
Yeah, I guess you can kind of see in the crack that something went in there, but it doesn't look like a crack anymore.
Well, in the end of things, how many people are really going to be nose to the wood?
Yeah, and I'm okay with, like, especially on this live edge table, I didn't want to leave the crack, but I'm okay with the idea that it's not necessarily perfect looking because that's the nature of that piece of furniture. As far as dyeing it, the 100% safe thing would be to call the manufacturer and ask them what they recommend. My understanding is that these rare earth pigments, powdered pigments, can be mixed into epoxy, but the last thing I want to cause is some kind of reaction that prevents the epoxy from hardening or doing what you want it to do. So I would choose the epoxy that you're going to choose, call their customer service line, tell them what you're trying to do, and ask them what the best stuff to mix in with the epoxy will be. It's quite possible sawdust from the project you're doing might be the answer as well.
Okay, I think maybe this will be time for our last question.
Okay.
So Doug wants to know, can you recommend a good all-around blade for a table saw and also for a miter saw?
Sure. So on a table saw, well, maybe. So I was ready to jump in there, and then my brain started spinning because it depends on the table saw and the miter saw would be what you're commonly cutting. So man-made materials tend to be very abrasive to saw blades. So from a tooth geometry perspective, if you're using a lot of man-made materials, a triple chip grind blade is a good choice because it's very, very durable. So it'll stand up against the glues and other junk in MDF and particle board and plywood. If you're working with a lot of solid woods, I like a 40 tooth alternate top bevel ATB blade. And a good blade like that, that's what's on my table saw right now. It can stay on for ripping and cross cutting and do a pretty darn good job. On a miter saw, fine tooth count. So on a 10-inch blade, on a miter saw, you want a 60 or 80 tooth blade, a little bit of a negative rake, meaning that the tooth is leaning back from the cut, maybe 5 degrees negative. And then a triple chip grind is probably a great choice for a miter saw.
Okay, great. I guess we do have time for one more.
Okay.
Don wants to know, where can I find your teaching schedule?
Vondriskawoodworks.com. So I'll put that link in the answer to this question. But on this building's website, Vondriskawoodworks.com, it'll tell you every place I'm going to be for like the next 3 months. And there's a lot of places. There's a lot of stuff going on. So thanks for asking.
Okay. And so to answer your question, I know you're going to ask, we have viewers from all over the United States. And it looks like we have some maybe newer to us. We have viewers from the Netherlands.
That is, I think that's first time ever.
And Ireland today, which I don't.
Cool.
Send us a Guinness.
Oh.
If you're watching.
Through the worldwide interwebs. There it comes out the camera.
Find the address on the website.
Wow.
Or send me tickets. I'll come visit.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay.
We'll do a woodworking show in Ireland. Sure.
Sounds good.
Did you hear that? Whoever's watching in Ireland, you just got to hook George up and
Or the
come over and
Netherlands.
teach.
Or
Comment with a little clover emoji if you want us to come visit you.
I'm hoping to go teach in Sierra Leone, of all places, in the next 6 months. So if that all works out, that'll be very cool.
We also have someone from Russia watching as well.
Well, I think that's a first.
That is definitely, at
Very
least
cool.
that we know of, that is definitely
Yeah.
a first for us. And Iceland.
Hmm.
Wow. Hey guys, thanks. This is kind of
Quite the
cool.
international following. It must be because you're here. You're a
Obviously.
traveler.
It's the Nordic skin tone. Attracts people like a beacon. They're so white.
Oh, I just snorted. Nice.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Is this peace
So
out?
almost. I got to do the whole closing thing. Right?
Did you look up our next one of these, or did Sam look up our list?
No,
Next month.
Sam.
It's the second Thursday of every month.
Sam
at
will get
7
it.
PM.
Sam
Okay.
will get it for us right now. And we should thank Sam because she is running all the technical stuff behind the scenes. And if Sam wasn't on here, we wouldn't be able to do these lives. So shout out to Sam.
Before we punch out, Chris will still do a commercial here yet, but give the folks at home some childhood memory of being in the shop, or I don't know, you can go ahead and embarrass the heck out of me. It's way worse things have happened. So anything.
Should we start with the fact that you have like a compost toilet in the shop? I feel like that's pretty embarrassing.
That was cool.
That was not cool.
All right. Yeah, my old shop had a composting toilet, not a conventional flush toilet.
I don't know. You still have that like painting thing that I did laying around here? Sorry, bring it in. I don't know. None of us kids ever really got into woodworking, but it was a good place to just hang out, lose a couple fingers, make some puzzles on the scroll saw.
There were birthday parties in there with
There
my
were.
friends.
There
where
were.
Everybody would make a craft.
In hindsight now, I really should have learned more, but it's a really great way to connect with your dad when you ask him to make furniture for your new apartment.
That's just recently happened.
Which did.
So true.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, guess what? We got a comment with the shamrock, so you're good to go, Meg.
All right, we're going to Ireland.
All right. We also I'm going to throw this out there, and then we got to wrap up. We do have someone watching from Trinidad today.
Oh, cool.
Boy, we have all sorts of firsts.
So Trinidad, dude, you can throw something. It's warm there, I think, right?
Well,
so,
it's March. Everyone, if you want us to come visit, just comment with a 4-leaf clover.
Oh yeah,
It's March, St.
Patty's Day
Patty's.
is,
next
St.
week.
I know
Patty's
what I'm
Day is
doing.
8 days out.
That's right. Okay. So we're going to wrap up.
Well, no, because then that reminded me of my second favorite joke.
No.
Oh, no.
I gotta get this right. The Irishman that always lives outside.
Did it wrong, but
No,
that's
I did
okay.
not.
Yes,
Patio furniture.
You try.
Yeah, okay.
If
That'd be
you're-
better if I could do the brogue.
So if you're an American when you go into the bathroom, and a Canadian when you come out of the bathroom, what are you when you're in the bathroom? European.
Okay, guys.
All right, we should check out Sam's.
That's
gotta
right.
Go take care
Sam's
of
got to
the baby
go,
or
probably.
something.
Yep. So, again, here with George Vondriska, managing editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. He answered your questions. He's going to sit down after and type the answers as well to these. So if yours didn't get answered, we are sorry. These two are having way too much fun tonight.
Thanks, Meg.
Someone's got to be the comedic relief.
Right? So he will
So
type
what
it
are you
up. So and we thank Meg for joining us today, and we thank Titebond for sponsoring tonight's live, and we'll see you guys.
Goodbye, Kelty.
We'll see you guys Thursday, April 13th at 7 p.m. Central U.S. Standard Time.
Okay.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.